What's up, guys? Welcome back to Gearhead Nation. We are going to get back to work on Bruised Ego today, and we are going to get this Holley Terminator X ran. So let's get at it. Alright, so the first thing I've done is I want to run the wires right in through here on top of the transmission tunnel just behind the engine. So I went and bought a 2-inch hole saw and went ahead and cut that area out for the wires. That way I can keep everything nice and clean, and once I go with the intake setup I want to go with, then we can do a nice clean engine bay install. So let's go ahead and get the wires fished through. As you guys can see, we got the wire fished through the firewall. Now we can go out to the engine compartment and start connecting the engine side. Now I did put a grommet on the wiring harness where it goes through the firewall. Next time I have the intake off, I'll just run some self-tapping screws into it and it'll be solid in place. Plus it'll keep the wires protected and hopefully keep me protected. So now we can get the wiring harness laid out as needed and start hooking things up. Alright, I've got the wiring harness laid out where it goes. I tried to run everything nice and clean. I'm gonna go back and rerun these injector wires to clean those up a little bit, I think. But here's our progress so far. We've got all the injector harness hooked up. Got it hooked up to the harness. We've got all of our wires tucked and running down the truck intake. We've got them tucked inside nice and neat. Everything running out where it belongs. Got the 2 grounds hooked up to the heads in the back. The knock sensor hooked up already. And we can start going through these wires and hooking them up. Now with this Holley harness, everything's awesome. Everything's labeled the way it should be. So it's going to be a pretty easy process. So let me get these hooked up and I'll come right back and give you guys a progress report. So what I'm thinking about doing for my constant power and constant ground or switch power is, we still have this wiring harness from the heater that is no longer here. So I may either tap into this wiring harness for that, or I may just depend it at the fuse box and run these wires to the fuse box. Find a constant power and a constant or a switch power. So I will do some thinking on that. Alright, and there it is. Got the wiring harness hooked up. Everything I could get hooked up anyways. I have a few sensors that I do need to buy and still hook up. There's this wire right here is for the map sensor. It's in the car somewhere, so as soon as I get that back on the intake, I'll hook that up. And then over here we've got this fuel pressure wiring harness. I need to get that sensor. This one right here, coolant temperature sensor. The coolant temperature sensor here on the side of the head, this one was damaged when as I was doing the swap, so I'm gonna have to switch that out, and then that wire will be hooked up. And then we got this one right here for the manifold air temperature sensor, and I need to buy that as well. But other than that, we've got everything hooked up. I am probably going to go through and clean up this wiring a little bit, get everything tucked in where it should be, to make everything look cleaner. But let's go ahead and jump on the inside. Alright, so we're back inside the car, and the first thing I want to figure out, I've got three ideas of where I want to mount this. One, I was thinking about mounting it under here, that way I can have easy access through the radio part of the dash. I'm planning on putting my start button and power button and all that stuff there. This car won't have stereo or anything like that in it. Another option I thought of is once the dash is put back in, I could mount it inside the glove compartment or behind the glove compartment, or I can put it down in this little hole where the body control module goes. The hookup in here is pretty simple. We've got two plugs that plug into the ECM itself. And then we've got a whole bunch of power wires and ground wires. And these are auxiliary wires for additional things. So we'll go ahead and get the wires plugged into the Terminator X itself. Alright, we got the engine harness hooked into the Terminator X, and we got the power and ground wire plugged in. Now, the power and ground, eventually I will be relocating the battery to the trunk, but for now I'm just going to run it through where the hole is for the wiring harness for the BCM. And for now I'll just keep the battery up front just to get it running. Then shortly we'll relocate everything to the back, so that won't be a big deal at all. So the next thing I'm going to tackle is we've got 5 loose wires on the main harness itself, and the book tells us what all the wires go to. The red and white wire is a 12-volt switched power. The solid red goes direct to the battery. Green wire powers our fuel pump, and black wire is a chassis ground. The blue and white wire is for the tachometer. So we'll go ahead and get those wires hooked up, and I'll be back with you guys. Alright, we're on to wiring our ground and our switch power. So what we're going to do is, I've got a test light, and I'm going to go through these power wires that went to the HVAC system and tap into that for our switch power. Eventually this winter all this wiring is going to go. Probably all the wiring in the car is going to go, because I'm going to go ahead and install the cage over the winter and redo all the wirings, greatly simplify it for the drag car setup. But for now we'll utilize what we've got, and I'll find switch power. Alright, we've got our switch power hooked up, and we've got our ground hooked up. I just have it taped off for now. I don't have any shrink wrap, so I'll have to pick some up and address that later. But I'm going to go ahead and start getting all this extra wiring out of here for the HVAC. And there you have it, guys. The wiring's pretty well cleaned up in here. We've got our power wires hooked up, our switch power and our ground. the battery power and grounds. There's 2 battery powers, one on the Holley itself and one on the engine compartment wiring harness. I have those ran out to the battery. We don't have those hooked up yet. I need to go get a new battery for this thing. So the only thing left to run is our fuel pump and our fan relays. But we'll go ahead and do that on the next episode. Alright guys, and there you have it. It's a pretty simple process. I have a few things I need to button up. I need to figure out what I'm going to do about the exhaust so I can figure out where I need to put the wideband O2 sensor, and I need to obviously hook up the fuel pump and relays for the fans, and a whole bunch of other small stuff. I'm gonna put new plugs and wires on it, new oil obviously, and things like that, and we'll dump some fuel in her and get her started up. So all that's going to be the next video, guys. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next video. We'll hear this bitch running.